7.
Imagine you're soaring through the skies on a routine flight when suddenly, without warning, the aircraft spirals out of control. On September 8, 1994, USAir Flight 427 plummeted from the sky, claiming 132 lives in an instant and leaving the world stunned. This tragedy not only unraveled a mysterious malfunction hidden deep within one of aviation's most trusted aircraft, but also sparked one of the longest and most complex investigations in aviation history. Join us as we delve into the chilling details, unravel the mystery, and explore the profound changes that reshaped air travel safety forever. On the morning of September 8, 1994, the crew of USAir Flight 427 began their day at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, meticulously preparing for their scheduled journey to Pittsburgh and then onward to West Palm Beach. The aircraft, a Boeing 737-300, underwent routine pre-flight inspections, ensuring every system was functioning flawlessly. Passengers boarded with the usual mix of anticipation and routine. The weather was clear, and everything seemed set for an uneventful flight as Captain Peter Germano and First Officer Charles Emmett prepared for takeoff, performing standard checks and procedures to ensure a safe journey ahead. USAir, originally known as Allegheny Airlines, was a major American airline that played a significant role in domestic air travel throughout the latter half of the 20th century. Renamed USAir in 1979 to reflect its expanding national presence, the airline was known for its extensive network of routes connecting cities across the United States. Headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, USAir became a prominent carrier, recognized for its commitment to passenger service and safety. Chicago O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest and most significant aviation hubs in the world, serves as a critical gateway for both domestic and international travel. Located on the northwest side of Chicago, O'Hare boasts a sprawling complex with multiple terminals, an extensive network of runways, and state-of-the-art facilities designed to handle millions of passengers annually. USAir Flight 427 embarked on its journey from Chicago O'Hare International Airport, heading towards Pittsburgh International Airport as its first stop. The flight path covered approximately 650 kilometers, about 400 miles, and was expected to take around 1 hour and 20 minutes. The aircraft involved was a Boeing 737-3 B-7, registered as EAM 513AU and previously as N382AU. Delivered in 1987, it was equipped with two CFM 56-3 B-2 engines. Before this flight, the aircraft had accumulated approximately 18,800 hours of flight time. The flight crew consisted of Captain Peter Germano, 45, and First Officer Charles B. Chuck Emmett III, 38. Captain Germano, who joined USAir in February 1981, had approximately 12,000 flight hours, with 4,064 on the Boeing 737. First Officer Emmett, initially hired by Piedmont Airlines in February 1987 before its merger with USAir in 1989, had 9,000 flight hours, including 3,644 on the 737. The flight attendants were Stanley Canty and April Slater, both hired in 1989 by Piedmont Airlines, and Sarah Slocum Hamley, who joined USAir in October 1988. All crew members were highly regarded and experienced professionals. More than 30 minutes after takeoff, the flight was cruising at its designated altitude, following its route to Pittsburgh. In the 1990s, the Boeing 737 was a highly lucrative aircraft for Boeing, widely used by airlines across the United States with thousands in service. Pilots certified to fly this aircraft were among the busiest, given the vast number of 737s operating throughout the country. However, the Boeing 737 was also facing competition from similar aircraft lines from rival Airbus. Nevertheless, it still held the #1 position in the United States. However, this was also the time when the Boeing 737 began encountering several issues, the causes of which were not yet clearly disclosed. Many pilots and their families often expressed concerns when flying these 737s. 3 years ago, on March 3, 1991, United Airlines Flight 585, a Boeing 737-200, crashed during a landing attempt in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The aircraft rolled to the right and pitched nose down into a near-vertical dive during the landing approach, resulting in the destruction of the plane and the loss of all 25 lives on board. Despite the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) investigation, the exact cause of the crash remained inconclusive. Severe damage to the Rudder Power Control Unit (PCU) prevented operational testing, and while the flight crew's history showed strict adherence to procedures and a conservative flying approach, the mystery of Flight 585's tragic end remained unresolved. The NTSB report couldn't definitively determine the cause of the fatal accident involving United Airlines Flight 585, although suspicions pointed towards the possibility of rudder malfunction. Consequently, the Boeing 737 continued to operate worldwide without any mandatory repairs. The rudder plays a crucial role in maintaining the stability and control of an aircraft during flight. Situated on the tail fin, it helps the aircraft to yaw or turn around its vertical axis. By adjusting the rudder, pilots can effectively steer the plane, counteract adverse weather conditions, and maintain proper alignment during takeoff, landing, and while cruising. The rudder also contributes to the aircraft's overall stability, ensuring smooth and controlled maneuvers throughout the flight. Its importance cannot be overstated, as it is a fundamental component in ensuring the safety and efficiency of air travel. The rudder plays a fundamental role in aircraft control, guided by both pilot inputs and flight control systems. Key principles govern its operation. Directional control. The rudder primarily controls yaw, allowing pilots to steer the aircraft left or right by deflecting it accordingly. Coordination with ailerons. Pilots coordinate rudder use with ailerons during turns to maintain balance, prevent adverse yaw, and ensure control. Takeoff and landing. During these critical phases, the rudder assists in runway alignment and crosswind correction, helping keep the aircraft on course. Crosswind correction. Skillful application of rudder inputs counteracts crosswinds, ensuring the aircraft remains aligned with the runway centerline. Stabilization. The rudder aids in stabilizing the aircraft, particularly in adverse weather or turbulence, helping maintain heading and overall stability. Emergency situations. In emergencies like engine failures, the rudder helps counteract yawing tendencies, aiding in maintaining control and safety. The Power Control Unit, PCU, is a critical component in the operation of an aircraft's rudder system. Its primary function is to regulate and control the movement of the rudder, allowing pilots to effectively steer the aircraft. The PCU translates the pilot's input commands into mechanical movements of the rudder, ensuring precise and responsive control during flight. By regulating hydraulic pressure, the PCU enables smooth and coordinated rudder movements, essential for maintaining stability and directional control. In essence, the PCU serves as the interface between the pilot and the rudder, playing a crucial role in the safe and efficient operation of the aircraft. Any malfunction or failure of the PCU can significantly impact the aircraft's handling characteristics, highlighting its importance in aviation safety and maintenance protocols. Returning to the flight crew had been planning to land at Pittsburgh International Airport. They had been scheduled to land on runway 28ER, which had offered a straightforward and expedient approach for their descent. Not long after, the flight crew received an instruction from Air Traffic Control, ATC, requesting them to descend to 18,000 feet. At around 7 p.m., the aircraft began its approach to the airport. However, due to the airport's busy traffic, USAir 427 had to wait for its turn to land. With the captain assuming the role of pilot flying during takeoff, the first officer would act as the pilot monitoring for the landing. Weather conditions, including visibility and wind, were favorable for a smooth landing. However, no one on board the aircraft knew that a tragic fate awaited them ahead. At this point, the flight began to receive instructions from Air Traffic Control, ATC, for a safe landing. They received a command to turn left with another aircraft positioned 6 miles ahead, posing a high risk of turbulence.
USAir 427, turn left heading 100. Traffic will be 1 to 2 o'clock, 6 miles. Northbound jet stream climbing out of 33 for 5,000.
We're looking for the traffic turning to 100, USAir 427.
As the aircraft were in trail, the airflow from the plane ahead could create significant turbulence for the aircraft following closely behind. At this moment, the crew of USAir 427 also received information from ATC that the aircraft ahead of them was United 1083, operated by a Boeing 727. This type of aircraft, equipped with 3 engines and positioned at the tail, was known to produce strong wake turbulence. By this point, the flight crew understood that the turbulence it generated could be significant. However, with the skills and experience of the pilots, this turbulence was generally not considered dangerous unless there were exceptional circumstances. Passengers were instructed to return to their seats, secure their belongings, and fasten their seatbelts to brace for the turbulence ahead. Meanwhile, the captain began taking action to assist the first officer. He started applying rudder pedal inputs to help stabilize the aircraft through the turbulence. Everything proceeded smoothly, following the standard procedure for encountering turbulence. In the cabin, there was still some shaking, but nothing of concern. Suddenly, something seemed amiss. The rudder abruptly jammed to the left and failed to return to its normal position. The aircraft immediately pitched and rolled sharply to the left. The autopilot disengaged, spreading a tense atmosphere throughout the cockpit and cabin.
Hold on.
The aircraft began to lose control amidst the panic of the flight crew and passengers on board.
USAir 427, Pittsburgh. USAir 427, Pittsburgh.
USAir Flight 427 crashed into Hopewell Township, Beaver County, Pennsylvania, while approaching runway 28R at Pittsburgh International Airport, claiming the lives of all passengers and crew on board. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, conducted an investigation into the crash of USAir Flight 427, marking a historic first as investigators were mandated to wear full-body biohazard suits due to the severity of the accident site. The impact of the crash resulted in extensive fragmentation of the passengers and crew's bodies, leading investigators to declare the area a biohazard zone, necessitating 2,000 body bags for the 6,000 recovered human remains. USAir faced challenges in determining the accurate passenger list for Flight 427, encountering confusion regarding the status of 5 or 6 passengers. Notably, several employees of the U.S. Department of Energy, originally scheduled for later flights, opted to fly on Flight 427. Both the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and flight data recorder, FDR, were retrieved and utilized for the investigation into the crash of USAir Flight 427. However, due to limited parameters recorded by the FDR, investigators lacked data on the position of flight control surfaces during the accident sequence, except for the aircraft's heading and the pitch control yoke position. Although Flight 427 encountered wake turbulence from Delta 1083 during approach, the FAA concluded that this alone wouldn't explain the subsequent heading change. The abrupt heading change before the dive led investigators to focus on the rudder, though without data on rudder pedal positions, it was challenging to determine if the movement was due to malfunction or pilot action. Analysis of the CVR scrutinized pilots' responses to discern if they were reacting to a rudder malfunction or turbulence. Boeing leaned toward pilot error, while USAir and the pilots' union favored a malfunction. The FDR revealed the aircraft stalled, subjecting occupants to high G-forces until impact with the ground in an 80-degree nose-down attitude at around 300 miles per hour under significant side slip. Analysis of the control yoke data from the FDR revealed a critical error made by the pilots of USAir Flight 427. Throughout the dive, the pilots continuously pulled back on the yoke, despite the stick shaker indicating an impending stall from the start of the descent. This action increased the aircraft's angle of attack, eliminated aileron control, hindered recovery from the roll induced by the rudder, and ultimately led to an aerodynamic stall. FAA criticized the pilots' failure to utilize proper crew resource management and noted their continued application of full-up elevator after receiving a stall warning. NTSB remarked that no airline had trained pilots to recover from the specific situation encountered by the Flight 427 crew, and that they had just 10 seconds from the onset of the roll to troubleshoot before recovery became impossible. Investigators later discovered that the recovered rudder power control unit from the accident was considerably more sensitive to bench tests than other new units. The failure mechanism involved the servo valve, which typically remains dormant and cold at high altitudes, but seizes after being injected with hot hydraulic fluid that has been continuously in use throughout the flight. Although this condition occurred in fewer than 1% of lab tests, it explained the rudder malfunction that led to the crash of Flight 427. During the ongoing investigation on June 9, 1996, while the NTSB was still probing Flight 427, the pilots of Eastwind Airlines Flight 517 momentarily lost control of their 737, 200 aircraft en route from Trenton, New Jersey to Richmond, Virginia. The plane encountered 2 instances of rudder reversal while approaching the landing in Richmond. In contrast to previous incidents, the rudder problems on Flight 517 resolved on their own after 15 seconds, allowing the pilots to land the aircraft safely. One of the 53 individuals on board sustained injuries. This incident marks the third rudder-related issue involving the 737 series within a few years, plunging Boeing into a serious crisis. Meanwhile, the NTSB discovered that numerous incidents related to the 737's rudder had occurred over the years, yet Boeing had taken no action to address them. Following the lengthiest accident investigation in NTSB history, spanning over 4.5 years, the NTSB issued its final report on March 24, 1999. The NTSB attributed the accident to mechanical failure, specifically stating, NTSB determines that the probable cause of the USAir Flight 427 accident was a loss of control of the airplane resulting from the movement of the rudder surface to its blowdown limit. The rudder surface most likely deflected in a direction opposite to that commanded by the pilots as a result of a jam of the main rudder power control unit servo valve, secondary slide to the servo valve housing, offset from its neutral position and overtravel of the primary slide. Moreover, the NTSB identified similar rudder problems as the causes of the previously inexplicable March 3, 1991 crash of United Airlines Flight 585 and the June 9, 1996 incident involving Eastwind Airlines Flight 517, both involving Boeing 737s. The final report also provided detailed responses to Boeing's arguments regarding the causes of the three accidents. At the time of the crash, USAir Flight 427 ranked as the second deadliest accident involving a Boeing 737 and the seventh deadliest aviation disaster in U.S. history. However, as of 2024, it now stands as the 9th deadliest 737 accident and the 11th deadliest aviation disaster in the U.S. The crash marked USAir's 5th incident between 1989 and 1994, with recovery and cleanup efforts costing approximately $500,000 in Pennsylvania. Initially, the FAA disputed the NTSB's conclusion of mechanical failure, but changed its stance after the Engineering Test and Evaluation Board reported 46 potential failures in the 737 rudder system. In response, the FAA mandated Boeing to redesign the rudder for over 3,400 aircraft in the U.S. Following the airline's response to the Flight 427 accident, the United States Congress mandated that airlines provide families of crash victims courteous and sensitive treatment and assistance with the various needs that accompany an accident. USAir retired the Flight 427 designation after the crash. This tragedy was the second fatal incident for USAir in just over 2 months, coming on the heels of the July 2nd Flight 1016 accident at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, which claimed 37 lives. These consecutive disasters exacerbated the financial crisis USAir was already facing at the time. In memories of 132 fatalities,